Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video. Thank you for watching our video. Please subscribe to watch our next video.
Thanks for watching. Follow a brighter destiny for more powerful stories, and don't forget to subscribe.
Was not supposed to be. Excuse me, ma'am. This is first class. I don't think you're supposed to be here. Well, they'll also let it loud enough for the first 6 rows to hear. Her petter back a tight knot. Her text, her lipstick a shade too red for 6:12 in the morning. Stood over seat 2A, with her hip cocked and her laminated badge, swinging against her chest, the picture of polish and confidence, the kind of woman airlines pull onto on recruiting posters. The woman in the seat did not look up right away. She wore a plain gray blazer, flat shoes, no jewelry visible except once a thin watch with a scratched face. And she was reading something on a tablet with the unhurried patience of someone who had learned, a long time ago, that panic solves nothing. "You have a boarding pass for this seat," the woman said quietly. Her seat carried the soft cadence of the Carolina Piedmont, unhurried, almost gentle. "Would you like to see it?" Courtney's mouth curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I'd love to." She took the boarding pass between 2 fingers like it might be contaminated, held it at arm's length, torn the light theatrically. The paper read Dr. Naomi Calloway, Seat 2A, Vantage Air Flight 2184, Charlotte to Chicago, purchased 11 days prior, for $2,931. Was not supposed to be real. Courtney studied it for 4 full seconds, then handed it back with a flick of her wrist that sent it fluttering into Naomi's lap instead of her hand. Courtney said. "We'll see." "The gate agent already cleared me," Naomi said, gathering the pass without complaint. "Want agents make mistakes," Courtney answered. And she said it the way people say things they've said many times before, worn smooth from repetition. This isn't the first time somebody's tried to slide up here who doesn't belong. 3 rows back, a man in a navy sport coat lowered coffee and turned his phone sideways. His name was Grant Whitmore, 44 years old. The Sheila who flew this route twice a month, and he'd never once seen a twinent for it before boarding was even finished. It was not supposed to be real. He didn't know why he started recording. Something about the stillness in the seated woman's face told him this was going to be worth watching. It was not supposed to be 1D. An older woman, named Margaret Doyle, leaned toward her husband and whispered just loud enough to be heard 2 rows away. "Always try this," she said. "Every single flight." Naomi Calloway said nothing to that. Was folded, her hands in her lap, and looked out the window at the tarmac, where a ground crew member was loading luggage in the gray 6A. On light, and for a moment the cabin seemed to be holding its breath around her silence. Courtney reached for her radio clipped to her shoulder. "Gate, this is Vale on 2184. I've got a passenger dispute in first class. Might need a supervisor before we push back." Was not supposed to be real. 14 minutes to scheduled departure. You ever been so certain someone doesn't belong us that you stop seeing the person surfing in front of you at all? Because that is exactly the mistake being made in row 2 of Vantage Air Flight 2184. And in 11 minutes, it is going to cost more than anyone on that airplane can imagine. Was not supervisors arrived faster than anyone expected, which told Naomi everything about how often a particular flight attendant called for backup. His name was Derek Holloway, a flight service manager with 15 years at the airline and a laminated badge of his own. And he came down the jet bridge already frowning, already believing the story before he'd heard a word of it. "Talk to me," he said to Courtney, not to Naomi. "Passengers claiming a first-class seat. Won't show real ID. Keep stalling," Courtney said, arms crossed. Was seen this exact scam 3 times this year. Derek turned to Naomi. "Ma'am, may I see your documents?" Naomi handed over her boarding pass and her driver's license without a word. Derek studied the license, flipped it over, studied it again, and studies something. When he has already decided what he wants to find. His address on it that read a street. in a part of Charlotte known for old money and older oak trees. Looked at Naomi's simple blazer, her flat shoes, the absence of any visible wealth, and something in his face hardened rather than softened. "I've had a run of counterfeit documents out of this market," Derek said. "I'm going to need to hold these while we verify." 12 minutes to departure. By seat 3B, a young woman named Isabel Reyes had gone very still. Worked claims for an aviation insurance underwriter and had seen exactly this posture before. The posture of someone who has decided the outcome before they've started. Wanted to say something. She didn't. Not yet, because she had learned in 11 years of professional life exactly how fast a room turns. On the person who speaks up first. In seat 4C, a man named Marcus Webb had already stood halfway out of his seat. Was 1 years old, retired Army logistics, 3 tours behind him. He had a voice that could carry across a hangar without a microphone. Doesn't sit right, he said. She showed her ticket. "What more do you people need?" Was not supposed to be real, sir. "Please take your seat," Derek said, and the please did nothing to soften the command underneath it. Courtney had her phone out now, angled low near her waist, the record light blinking red. Was not supposed to be real. "Hey everybody, it's your girl Courtney. Dealing with some first-class drama this morning," she narrated under her breath. And 42 people were already watching somewhere in the world, before the plane had even pushed back from the gate. Naomi's phone buzzed in her blazer pocket. She glanced at the screen, declined to clown on a call without comment, and set the phone face down on her tray table. Was not supposed to departure. Ground security arrived, in the shape of a broad-shouldered officer, Alan Brooks. Dude Alan Brooks, 20, unmarked, who walked the aisle like a man who had diffused 100 disputes to be exactly like one, and expected this to be the 101st. Looked at Derek first, not Naomi. The same way Derek had looked at Courtney first. "What's the situation?" he asked. "Passengers in a first-class seat she may not have paid for," Derek said. "His documents look suspicious. We need her off the aircraft so we can push back on time." Officer Brooks finally turned to Naomi. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm going to need you to gather your things and come with me." Was not supposed to be. Naomi looked up at him with the same unhurried patience she had shown from the very first second of this conversation. Was a valid boarding pass and a government-issued license. She said, "I'd like to speak with the captain before I go anywhere." The request seemed to offend Court more than anything that had come before it.
"Oh, now she wants the captain," she said to no one, to everyone, to the phone recording low against her hip.
Was not supposed to be real. "Ma'am, the captain does not have time for people trying to talk their way out of getting caught." Was minutes to departure. Grant Whitmore, still recording from row 3, caught every word of it, and his video was already climbing past 200 views on a live stream link he'd shared to a frequent flyer form out of pure disbelief. Was somebody in the comments had typed, "This is insane." Somebody else had typed, "Film everything." Was Officer Puss reached for Naomi's forearm. A light touch meant only to guide, and that was the moment Naomi Calloway reached into the inside pocket of her blazer. Was not supposed to departure. What she pulled out was not a weapon, not a lawyer's letter, not a shouted name that would end the argument on the spot. Was a plain black card case, the leather soft with age, from a fitting which drew Fiji business cable, which he fingered off space to people toitable. Resting lightly on top of it like she was in no hurry at all. "Mr. Holloway," she said, "before you make a decision you can't take back, I'd ask you to bring your captain down here personally. Not over the radio. In person." Derek's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, I have full authority to handle passenger matters." Was understand that you believe that, Naomi. And then he says nothing far interview. Nothing raised, only a terrible calm. Was want to hear this from him. Directly, 5 minutes to departure. Isabel Reyes from seat 3B had the clearest angle in the cabin, and when Naomi's fingers shifted like she caught 2 in gold embossed lettering before the hand covered it again. Was breath caught audibly enough that Marcus Webb turned to look at her. "What is it?" he whispered. I'm not sure, Isabel said. But her face had gone the color of chalk. It was not supposed to be real. Courtney rolled her eyes for the benefit of her live stream. And probably printed that at a long shop up this morning folks, Quintamin and Storti Poithios Vichums laughed along with her in the comments, and not one of them would remember laughing by the end of the day. It was 4 minutes to departure. Officer Brooks reached for his radio. Ground, this is Brooks on 2184, requesting a possible gate return for passenger removal. It was not supposed to open, the cockpit door opened. Capt, or Donatid, the commandant, the unhurried, the taunty he, oriented, who had flown for 26 years and had never once left the flight deck for a passenger dispute in his life. With silver at the temples, reading glasses pushed up into his hair. He took 3 steps down an aisle and stopped cold when I landed on seat 2A. Everyone step back from this row, he said now. Officer Brooks blinked. Captain, we were told it was back daughters to be real. And there something in his voice that made even Courtney lower her phone an inch. It was not supposed to be real. He crossed the remaining distance to Naomi's seat and looked down at the card still resting under her fingers. Slowly, deliberately, she turned it face up and slid it toward him. Captain Donovan read it once. It was then he read it again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less catastrophic the second time. When he looked up, his face had drained anxiety of every ounce of color it had carried a moment before. Dr. Calloway, he said, and his voice cracked in slightly on the second syllable. I am so sorry. I had no idea. 2 minutes past scheduled departure. That was when everyone first class finally that something had gone entirely irreversibly wrong, and none of them yet knew exactly how wrong it was about to get. It was not supposed to be real. Grant leaned forward, phone still recording, and read the card aloud for the 700 people now watching his live stream. Sterling Aerospace Holdings, he read slowly. Dr. Naomi Calloway, founder and chief executive officer. The chat exploded before he even finished the sentence. With Sterling Aerospace, someone wrote, that's the company that leases planes to half the airlines in the country. Was Captain Donovan pulled a phone from his own jacket pocket, hands not quite steady, and dialed a number he clearly had saved for exactly this kind of emergence and had prayed he would never use. Was Captain Donovan on Vantage Flight 2184? He said, voice low. I need immediate confirmation on the executive leadership of Sterling Aerospace Holdings. It was not supposed to be real. While he waited and turned the screen so the captain could see it without asking. Tail number Victor Alpha 4471, she said quietly. Currently under lease from Sterling Aerospace to Vantage Air's parent company. Was annual contract value $14.6 million. This is one of our aircraft, Captain. We're standing on a plane my company owns. Derek Colcom made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Isabel Reyes, from row 3, finally found her voice. Small at first and then steadier. Work in aviation underwriting, she said. My company insures part of Sterling's fleet. This is real. Was this actually real? Marcus Webb stood fully now, no one telling him to sit back down. Was you she showed her ticket, he said. To Courtney, to Derek, to the whole silent cabin. Was told all of you. Courtney's confidence, for the first time since 6:12 that morning, began to crack visibly across her face. It was not supposed misunderstanding, she said. Instruments, though. From our nod, Pleatnad had gone from Lamis Mimper nod in the span of 90 seconds. Half her viewers were already typing the words she just discriminated against her own company's landlord. 4 minutes past scheduled departure. Naomi's phone rang again. This time she answered it. Dr. Calloway, she said. Yes, I'm aware. Yes, I'm still on the aircraft. It hasn't pushed back. It was not supposed to be real. Please have legal begin up our lease exposure. With Vantage's parent company. And let's get the incident documentation started. There are multiple recordings already circulating. We ended the call and looked up at Captain Donovan with an expression that held cruelty in it at all. Only a tired, weary clarity. It was not supposed to be real. Captain, I don't want anyone thrown off this airplane. she said. I never wanted that from the beginning. What I want is for you to understand exactly here I paying us last 14 minutes. Cause I think everyone is standing in line to hear it plainly. With 6 minutes past scheduled, sure. She began, unhurried, the way she had spoken the entire time. It was not supposed to be real. I boarded this aircraft with a valid ticket in a seat I paid for on an airplane that belongs to a company I founded 18 years ago in Greensboro. Within 90 seconds of sitting down, I was told I didn't belong here. Within 4 minutes, my documents were called without a single verification call being made. It was not supposed to be real. Within 8 minutes, security was summoned to physically remove me, and the entire encounter was live-streamed to hundreds of strangers without my knowledge or consent. Grant Whitmore, still recording, went completely silent for the first time that morning. None of that happened because of anything I did, Naomi continued. It was not supposed to be real. It happened because of what I looked like when I sat down in this seat. It was not supposed to be real. That is the entire person in this cabin, and I would like every preacher and everyone watching at home right now to sit with that just a moment before we go any further. It was not supposed to be real. The cabin did sit with it. Even Margaret Doyle in 1D, before the plane eel had even pushed back, stared down at her own hands as if you were seeing them for the first time. Watson Donovan's callback came through. This is regional operations. A voice crackled from the phone, now held on speaker for the whole front cabin to hear. Confirming, Dr. Naomi Calloway is founder and CEO of Sterling Aerospace Holdings. She is scheduled to be in Chicago this afternoon for a board session with of our largest carrier partners. Is there a problem with her flight, Captain? Donovan closed his eyes. No problem, he said. Was verifying passenger information. He hung up and turned to Faye Toro, then Courtney Vale, and there was nothing left. The authority. 8 minutes earlier. Dr. Calloway, Donovan said, on behalf of this entire crew and this airline, I am deeply, sincerely sorry. It should never have happened, and it is entirely on us. Naomi nodded once, slowly. Apology accepted, Captain. Now let's talk about what happens next, because an apology in this cabin isn't the same thing as a fix. 9 minutes past scheduled departure. She opened her phone one more time, scrolled to a dashboard, and turned it. It's they could both the number in real time. It was incident has been reviewed 4,000 times across 3 different platforms in the last 11 minutes, she said. It was trending locally under a hashtag I did not create and cannot take down. Whatever happens next in this aisle, it is happening in public, and it will happen whether or not Vantage Air participates in shaping it honestly. Greg Holloway's voice, when it finally came, smaller than it had been all morning. Dr. Calloway, what would you like us to do? I want 3 things, Naomi said. First, a full and honest internal review of exactly what happened here, including every radio call and English made with no editing of the record. Was second, mandatory bias awareness training for customer-facing employee at this era. Not a video nobody watches, an actual program with real accountability behind it. With third, a passenger report tells it goes west directly to someone with the authority to act on it within hours, not weeks. It was not supposed to be real. She paused, then added the line that would end up quoted in every article written about this flight by the end of the week. It was not asking for anyone, Naomi said. I airline to build a system where the next person who looks like me doesn't need part of the company to be believed. Courtney Vale, phone finally lowered, still tried to hold her ground one last time. I was just following protocol, she said, weakly, to no one in particular. Naomi turned to look at her directly for the first time since the confrontation began, and her voice, when it came, no anger in it, net at only a quiet, exhausted disappointment that landed heavier than shouting ever could have. It was no protocol that requires you to decide someone is lying before you've asked them a single real question, Naomi said. What followed this morning wasn't rule. It was an assumption and you narrated it, live to strangers, for entertainment while you did it. Courtney had no answer for that. For the first time since 6:12 that morning, she said nothing at all. 11 minutes past scheduled departure. Captain Donovan's phone rang once more, and this time it was Vantage Air's regional director, a man, Paul Forrest, calling directly Ferris, his voice tight with the particular panic of an executive watching a controllable situation stop being controllable. "One Captain, put me on with Dr. Calloway," Ferris said. "Please." Donovan handed the phone across. "Dr. Calloway, this is Paul Ferris, regional director for Vantage Air. I want to personally apologize on behalf of this airline. Please tell me what we can do to make this right today, not next quarter." It was not supposed to be real. Naomi repeated 3 requests something. The way a pie time repeal enough, and it sishni one pie enough. The first time that they seen a tiny reason to raise their voice the second. "One," Ferris said, almost before she'd finished speaking. "All 3, effective today. And Dr. Calloway, I have to act directly. Are we still going to have a partnership with Sterling Aerospace after this?" Naomi was quiet for a moment, long enough that the whole front cabin seemed to lean in without moving an inch. "It depends entirely on what I see over the next 90 days, she said, "not on what gets promised in the next 90 minutes. 14 minutes past scheduled departure. Marcus Webb spoke up from row 4. His voice steady now, instead of angry. "Nam," he said to Naomi, "thank you for letting them just sweep this under the rug. It was not supposed to be real. A lot of us have had mornings like this one. We just didn't want what you had in your pocket to fix it." Isabel Reyes nodded fiercely beside him. "I'm going to write this up for my company's diversity council," she said. "It needs to be a training case study, not just a video online." Even Margaret Doyle, in 1D, finally turned around, her flushed with something that looked genuinely like shame. "It was something ugly earlier," she said. Mostly to her husband, but loud enough for the row behind her to hear. "I judged her before I knew a single thing about her. That was wrong of me, and I'm sorry." Naomi looked at her and simply nodded. "That's the whole lesson, Mrs. Doyle," she said gently. "Most of us do it without even noticing. The work is noticing." 16 minutes past scheduled departure. It was not supposed to be real. Officer Brooks, who had stood silent and increasingly uncomfortable through the last several minutes, finally spoke. "Dr. Calloway, I apologize as well," he said. "I acted on what I was told instead of asking my own questions first." "What's on me?" "That's exactly the kind of science that fixes systems, Officer Brooks," Naomi said. It was for saying it out loud, instead of just walking away quietly. Derek Holloway, still pale, still visibly shaken, cleared his throat. "Dr. Calloway," he said, "what happens to Ms. Vale?" Naomi looked at Courtney one last time, and Courtney, for the first time all morning, did not meet her eyes. "It was not my decision to make," Naomi said. "That belongs to your company's own review, run honestly, with the full recording as evidence, not edited down to protect anyone's feelings. I was not interested in revenge. I am interested in whether this airline is capable of holding itself accountable when nobody with power is watching. It was not supposed to be real." 19 minutes past scheduled departure, Vantage Air Flight 2184 finally pushed back from the gate 23 minutes PSA schedule, carrying 147 passengers towards Chicago, and carrying something else with it too, something none of the standard flight manifests would ever record. It was not supposed to be real. 6 months later, Hill aboard Flight 21084 had become something close to a case study across the airline industry. Vantage Air reported a 68% drop in passenger discrimination complaints and entire networks across the rollout of a BIOS range training program built into consult educators not outside civil rights and consultation, a full 16-hour certification, and every customer-facing employee had to complete and renew and train it. New passenger advocacy line, staffed around the clock, had processed just complaints in its first 2 quarters. We your beef and internal propaganda that heams the proxtipag permiti a documented response within 72 hours. Grant Whitmore, the businessman whose phone had captured the entire encounter from row 3, became an unlikely fixture in that same training program. His original video, viewed more than 3 million times, was now shown at the start of every new hire orientation. Not as a spectacle, but as a lesson. It was not supposed to be real, because I was curious how it would end. He said in an interview months later, "What I learned watching it back was how quickly I'd already decided who was telling the truth, before I had any actual reason to believe it." Isabel Reyes left her underwriting job 11 months later to launch a small consulting firm focused on bias auditing for travel and hospitality companies. His first client was Vantage Air itself. Waar ze saab to mind lead ik easily easier use ost for for each knowledge tree would direct line to Iran line leader down. T. Marcus said that he almost turned down. He was teaming one in a suit to a retired logistics sergeant. He was listen now, he said. Every single meeting was not supposed to be real. Margaret Doyle, 60 told double chapel by the incident, wrote a short, unpolished letter to the letter planning 3 weeks later, describing Philandus she didn't made had even left the gate and asking, plainly, how she could do better the next time she found herself in a similar moment. That letter, with her permission, was quietly added to the training material as well, not as an example of villainy, but as an example of the ordinary, unremarkable way bias moves through a crowded room, when nobody stops to question it. Was Holloway kept his position after a formal review and a suspension. He completed the same certification program twice and personally lead its rollout at his home airport. It was not supposed to be real. People change when they're forced to sit with what they got wrong, he said later. In a company newsletter interview, he almost declined to give. Got it wrong. I'd rather spend the next 10 years proving that it didn't happen. Courtney Vale did not keep her position. Vantage Oz internal review footage from her own alongside three independent passenger scenes found that she had violated both the airline's conduct guidelines by broadcasting a passenger was terminated 8 days after the flight landed. News outlet months later. She owned her job the way she'd done it, and that she still fully understand what she'd done wrong. Was, in its own quiet way, the most honest thing anyone involved in that morning ever said. And also the saddest. Was Dr. Naomi Calloway never sued the airline, never demanded compensation beyond the changes she asked for in that cabin, and he were easy interview naming Courtney Vale by name. When a reporter asked her, months later, why she hadn't pushed harder, hadn't demanded namer, then be or support one's career principal, and she wanted the ended skoen olsping that, she answered the way she'd answered of everything on 8-4, unhurried, unshaken, entirely without cruelty. Was not supposed to be real. I didn't build a company out of a bedroom apartment by burning things down for the satisfaction of it, she said. Was built it by fixing what was broken and moving forward. That's what I did on that plane, and it's what I'd do again. Was not supposed to be real. She closed the interview with one more line, the one that ended up printed beneath her photograph in 3 separate industry publications by the end of that year. You don't need to raise your voice to raise the standard, she said. You just need to refuse to accept less than what's fair, calmly and consistently, until the people around you finally understand that fair and you was never optional in this first place. Was ever been the person in that seat, disbelieved before you'd even finished a sentence, or if you've upon in the eels you wrong, your first assumption was on. He will force to share pause your story in the comments below. It was not supposed to be you saw. Talk about what you do. These moments in airports, offices, and offshore and waiting rooms all over the country, most of the time with no business card in anyone's pocket to force the room to slow down and pay attention. The lesson is the same either way. Ask the honest question first. Believe people until you have an actual reason not to. When you have the power to fix a broken system, instead of just punishing one person inside it, choose the fix every time. Was not supposed to eat you. And the kind of power that outlasts anger. Disclaimer. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes only. All characters, names, businesses, and events depicted are entirely fictional and do not represent any real person, living or dead, or any actual establishment. Whose resemblance to real persons, organizations, or events is purely coincidental. This content is intended to explore themes of human dignity, workplace ethics, and social justice through narrative storytelling. Was not make factual claims about any individual, company, or institution.